Hope everyone's having a pleasant evening. It's sometime after 9 p.m. on a July afternoon here in Ohio, and it's still light out as it tends to be in the Midwest until like 10 p.m. in the summer. Although you notice there's like a little bit of haze in the air, and that's because we got some of that Canadian wildfire smoke covering the upper Midwest, like Minnesota, Michigan, and Wisconsin, Northern Ohio, etc. A couple of maintenance issues on this 2015 Passat TDI with the manual transmission to pass along, and they've kind of come about in the last month or so of driving this car, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. But we put probably in the last week close to 2,000 miles on it. Went from Eastern Pennsylvania down to Asheville, North Carolina. Went from Asheville over to Johnson City, Knoxville, Lexington, back up to Michigan. All over Michigan, back down to Ohio today, back to Michigan this evening. And so we're doing a ton of driving around with this thing and just racking up the miles. It easily gets 700 miles to a tank, even if you're going 75 or 80 on the highway. And it just devours the miles. It's almost begging you to drive it 85 or 90 miles an hour. It's a German car built for the Autobahn. Although not really, because this Passat, the 2012 through whenever they stopped making it, it actually was designed specifically for the North American market. And you actually could not get this version in Europe. They had like a shorter version that was like smaller and lighter, made for European standards. And this was like the supersized version made for big corn-fed Americans. Great car, absolutely fantastic car. But a couple of maintenance issues that we've noticed. The first is, and we actually knew this since we bought the car, these cars tend to have a lot of blow-by. And when we were test driving it in summer, fall of 2020 when we bought it, that was one of the things we checked for, and it was kind of startling, almost alarming, the amount of blow-by that it had. And it only had about 70,000 miles at that point. Now it has 140,000. And it's just one of those things, as we've come to find out, that a lot of people say, yeah, the 2.0 TDI just has a lot of blow-by. And it's not as if it's short on power. It's not as if it's got a loss of fuel mileage. Again, this thing is routinely getting 50 on the highway. But for some reason, these engines have a lot of blow-by, and it's not entirely clear why, and I guess we're going to look into it and figure it out. Second thing to pass along, we just had the tires changed out. We had BF Goodrich, something Advantage Sport, something like that. The ones you can get at Costco. And those things lasted 70,000 miles, and they still had a healthy amount of tread left on them. But they were starting to get some of those hairline cracks because the tires themselves were from 2019, so they were 6 years old. And, it was just a little bit alarming. We were getting a decent amount of cracking on them. And 2 of them were having trouble holding pressure. And you were having to air them up every week or so, even after we had them fixed. And so we just went to Costco and got basically the same tire. It's the BF Goodrich Advantage something, Advantage Sport, Advantage something. It's got great traction, and we know this because less than a week ago we were driving through North Carolina when a tropical storm had just hit. It was like last Wednesday, whatever that was, the 10th of July, maybe 9th of July, and it was raining harder that evening than I'd seen in like 20 years almost. It was like monsoon season in Korea levels of rain. Extraordinary amounts of rain, like lightning every 3 to 5 seconds, and rain so heavy that you got to slow down to like 40 on the highway on the interstate, maybe 35 or 40. And there was flash flooding, and fortunately, you didn't see the kind of flooding that they got during Hurricane Helene last fall in that exact same area, but I'm sure a lot of people's PTSD was set off by that. And those tires, even with 70,000 miles on them, had no trouble handling heavy rain, like torrential rain, like heavy rain for a couple of hours straight, nonstop. So couldn't speak more highly of those tires. Oh, by the way, there was no abnormal wear of any kind, and so this car's ability to hold in alignment and maintain absolutely perfect alignment, no weird camber issues like you get on a Tesla, no weird feathering, no toe issues, no nothing. Abnormal inner tire wear, abnormal outer wear, nothing. Those tires wore down perfectly and still had tons of useful tread with 70,000 miles on them. And we just had to get rid of them, like I said, because they were starting to crack. I think the warranty on them was 60,000, so we were outside the tread warranty or whatever. Anyway, that's the next thing to pass along. The next thing to pass along is that the oil on these cars, if you don't know it, a European turbo diesel, like a VW or Audi TDI, it needs like extra special oil. You can't just use Mobil 1 or even the diesel Mobil 1, which has more detergents to help take care of the extra soot production that you get, and extra compounds in it, and calcium or whatever it is that they put in oil to help it handle all that soot that diesels produce and that diesels get into the oil. You got to have an extra special version, and it's actually called Mobil 1 ESP, emission system protection. And that's because these damn German or European diesels, TDIs, the DPF on them, assuming that you have not deleted your car, the DPF is so sensitive that regular synthetic oil, of which you know a certain amount is going to burn. You know, maybe you'll burn a half a quart every 1,000 miles, or you'll burn whatever, a half a quart every 2,000 miles. I think we burned a quart in the space of 4,000 miles. The DPF can get sludged up or gummed up or whatever from regular synthetic oil that you're using. And so you have to have special low ash synthetic oil. And again, if you're using Mobil 1, it's called Mobil 1 ESP. Emission system protection. And so it's the kind of place that it's the kind of thing that your oil change place is not going to have. And they're going to want to just use regular full synthetic. And that's fine in the sense that it's not going to get cooked by your turbo and start sludging up in your turbo or your valve train or whatever. But I guess regular synthetic in a European diesel, like a BMW, like an Audi VW, or like a Mercedes, for instance, regular synthetic oil might sludge up the DPF, and also sludge up your EGR, because as you may or may not know, the EGR in these Volkswagen TDIs runs really hot, and it can actually break down the coolant in the engine and cause it to degrade and cause it to produce a ton of sediment that can then ruin your heater core and either plug it up completely or ruin its ability to conduct heat, to pass heat from that coolant into the flow of the HVAC and heat your car up. And so this car, for instance, 2 winters ago, so winter of 2014, when it was turning 9 years old, it basically lost all the heat. And in the upper Midwest in Michigan, you got to have heat in your car. And so we had them replace the heater core, and we got it done under the emission system warranty, which I think runs to like 160,000 miles, give or take. But that was like one and done. We're not getting the next one for free, and that's like $1,000+ job, like a $1,500 job. So if you want your heater core to last as long as possible, again, in a TDI, which has an EGR system, assuming you haven't deleted it, that can basically cook your coolant and degrade it, you got to change it out every like 30,000 miles, give or take, and flush the cooling system and get special VW certified coolant, because it wouldn't be easy enough just to get regular coolant. You got to get VW antifreeze coolant just like you got to get special VW oil. So there's that to pass along as well. One item on the it's called the DMF, the dual mass flywheel, which these cars have and a number of other cars have, and it's as I understand it, it's not unique to the manual. The DSG transmission has it too, which is a dual clutch automatic / manumatic, however you want to describe it. The DMF, the dual mass flywheel, it has 2 different masses on it in order to counteract a ton of vibration that the diesel can produce, especially at low RPMs. It's not just the German engineers being kind of overdoing it yet again. Apparently there's an actual reason for it and a justification for it, which is to dampen out some of those really major vibrations that the diesel engine can produce. Yes, you have to replace it with a DMF, and it's not to preserve the synchronizers in the transmission, which I guess are made of brass and are delicate. No, it's not because of that. It's because it can just produce an absolutely enormous amount of shaking and like violent shaking if you try to replace it with a non-dual mass flywheel. And so when it goes out, it's going to go out, and you just have to replace it with another one that's just as expensive and complicated as the one it came with. There's no such thing as like a single mass flywheel in a 2.0 TDI if you're trying to cheap out on it. What else? We actually had the passenger side mirror fall off, or no, it delaminated. Like the reflective part came off to where it was just like a cloudy looking piece of glass on there. So I had to remove that, replaced it, and with like a $15 replacement from Amazon, and very easy job. And the dealer wanted to charge like hundreds and hundreds of dollars for an entire new assembly. Also fixed the parking brake. The button broke off the parking brake, and the dealer and even the local mechanic wanted to charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a brand new parking brake lever, because I guess you can't buy the button separately. And so we just kind of screwed around with it and figured out how to get the button to go back on. And as usual with a German car and a German component, it was enormously finicky and complicated, and we had to like super glue it and then have it like squeezed for 3 or 4 hours to get the super glue to hold, because the spring in there was actively trying to eject the button the entire time that super glue was drying. But it's good to go now. A lot of people have replaced the factory radio, which is a touchscreen, and it's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but it also doesn't have CarPlay, and I guess a lot of people can't live without CarPlay these days. And so you can actually get a new head unit or a radio that looks factory. It looks like it was built that way, and it actually has CarPlay built into it, which is kind of nice, to be honest. But as you may come to find out, you can actually live without CarPlay. And we just mount our phone on that MagSafe mount that we bought, and use the phone, and it's fine. You can use Google Maps on your phone and survive, and you'll be okay. A couple other things. What the hell is it? These seats, these are not leather seats. These are the black and tan. These are the black and tan seats that you can get with the SE. This is not an SEL. You can also get plain old black seats, and you can get maybe a couple other colors. But the black and tan look for the interior it's a real nice looking, classy looking interior. And it has fake leather seats. It's called like corn silk. That's the VW name for it. And these things have held up. Like, they look like they're brand new, these seats. They do not wear, they do not crack like leather does. They don't rip. You can't stain them. and it looks like they're perforated, like for like ventilation, like your heated, cooled ventilated seats. And they do have heat, but they don't have cooling, and they're not ventilated. So it's not as if you spill something on it, it's going to soak in and ruin your seat ventilation system, because it doesn't have one. And this is actually making us rethink on the Ford Super Duty. They have gotten rid of leather seats in the Lariat Super Duty, and probably the Lariat F-150 for all we know. And they replaced it with something called Active X. And at first we thought it was just Ford being cheap once again and removing features, and obviously not reducing the price, but just removing features to save themselves money, but continuing to take as much of your money as they feel like taking. But in reality, looking at the way these seats in the VW have aged, if the Ford so-called Active X fake leather can age as well as these VW seats that are also fake leather have aged, then maybe it's not the worst thing in the world that Ford is moving away from leather, at least in the Lariat trim, at least in the Super Duty. No complaints whatsoever about these seats. Obviously, they get extremely cold in the winter, and that's the problem with leather seats or any seat that's like cloth. But they warm up just fine when you activate the seat heat. In the summer, they get crazy hot, and you just got to live with that, and you kind of live with it and get over it, and it's just not a big deal. Other maintenance issues, we got a couple of bulbs that are out. We got like a DRL, daylight running light bulb, that's out, and maybe a corner marker light that's out as well. And so we're going to get those fixed, no big deal. It's a monumental hassle to reset the oil change light, by the way, and the inspection light, or the inspection reminder as well. Monumental hassle. It takes like, you gotta find a YouTube video about it, because it's one of these stupid, ridiculous procedures that only the Germans could invent. You gotta have like the ignition key off, but it's in the lock, but it's turned off, and then you gotta like hold down the trip odometer reset and then turn the key, and that's how you disable that's how you reset the oil change meter. A normal car company would just make it to where you can navigate to that in the settings and reset it. And then to reset the inspection reminder, you got to turn on the blinkers and then put the key in the ignition, and then hold down the trip odometer reset, and then turn the ignition key to the on position, as if you were supposed to know that. It's just maddening sometimes. Although we can't complain too much. Again, this car is held up like fantastic at 10 years old and 140,000 miles. Like, it's held up just fantastic. Other maintenance issues to pass along. Really, yeah, just one more, which is that the car, it's a black exterior. You can't really tell. It's built up a lot of scratches being out here in the Midwest and just going through life. A lot of scratches, and they show up very, very clearly in black paint. And so that's going to be our next project, to get rid of all these damn scratches. And some of them are pretty deep. And one or two of them, like we got rock chips on the front, the leading edge of the hood. And if you get rock chips and you don't deal with them immediately, sometimes they can start to rust. And so we're going to deal with those ASAP. But overall, the body does not have hardly any rust on it, even after 10 years, half of which were spent in the frozen Midwest. It's in absolutely, practically pristine condition, the body. As are the rims. The rims don't have any like scuffs and curb rash, whatever you want to call it. So overall, the car is holding up very, very well. Couldn't be happier. Oh, by the way, the clutch is still extremely. Clutch is still just fine, nice and tight at 140,000 miles. It does not appear as if we'll need a clutch anytime soon. Maybe 175,000 we'll come back and tell you that we had to get one. Maybe at 200,000. But at 140,000, the clutch is still nice and tight. Even with a teenage driver learning how to drive on it and stalling it a bunch of times. No issues whatsoever. Dashboard is looking great, no cracks, none of that. The leather wrapped steering wheel is also in pristine condition. So overall, we got practically no complaints about this car. And again, it's just racking up the miles. It gets 650 easily, and more like 700 miles per tank of fuel. at an average of around 50 miles to the gallon, give or take, without even trying, at 75 or 80 miles an hour. I guess one last thing I'll point out. That's our live consumption, average range, average speed, blah, blah, blah. Look at the oil temp. The oil temp in this car is like consistently mid 200s. And on the highway, it will exceed 250 degrees. And that's kind of pushing it. Like that's, you don't want to have your oil temp go above 260. The water temp, is always 190. Like always, always, always. Just like it was in our last Passat, the V6 Passat, the 99 that we had, that held up for 20 years. Water temp is always 190. And it comes up to operating temperature very quickly, like 5 minutes, give or take. But the oil temp, when we're up on the highway, it is like 240s and low 250s consistently. Again, when you're going like 80 miles an hour on the interstate and it's 80 or 90 degrees out. It's been like mid 90s in some cases out here in the Midwest. And so is it a concern? Yeah, I mean, again, you don't want your oil temp to go over 260, and 250 is kind of pushing it. 240 is a little bit on the high side, but it's not a red flag. It's just something to watch, and you got to be religious with the oil changes, because first of all, it's a turbo. Second of all, it's a turbo diesel, and it gets all that soot into the oil. Even with all the detergents that the oil has, you don't want that stuff scraping around in your engine, all that soot. And coupled with the fact that the oil temp is running in the mid 200s, like, could you imagine running non-synthetic in this thing? That would be like, that would kill it astonishingly fast. But even with full synthetic, even with the special, the extra special oil that you got to have in a VW, you still got to keep up with those oil changes, because look how hot it runs the oil. On level ground, not even like going up steep mountains like we were on Wednesday and Thursday in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Those mountains are no joke. Going up like I-26 from Asheville, it's pretty heavy stuff. Anyway, I think it's all for now. Hope you all are having a great summer. It's a fantastic summer for us out here in the Midwest. And we're just loving this damn car. We went a couple of years without hardly driving it, and we've been driving the piss out of it this summer. All right, we'll talk to you later. Have a good one.